Thanks everyone for joining me. I'm having a conversation today with Karen Gershowitz. She's author of two travel books, and I know there's more in the making. She's had an amazing lifetime of travels, photography, and just has so much to share about that. She's written Travel Mania and Wanderlust, which will be coming out in October. So I'm super excited to hear about that. But I just want to talk about the writing process and where to kind of start with that, where to collect what you've maybe, where you've been and how to make, what do you do with it?
Well, it's a long process. I'll just tell you that for
Yeah.
starters. But it's fun. But it's fun. I love doing it. I kept a journal, travel journal. My mother started me when I was 8 years old. And we went to Florida, and she said, "You're not going to remember this unless you write it down." And I was into art, so I wrote it down and I drew pictures, and I still have that journal. And she really got me into the habit of every time I went anywhere to write a journal about what I had done, what I had seen, what I had experienced. And I have them, I literally have done it for every personal trip, not business trip, because I've also traveled for business, but for every personal trip since I'm 8 years old. And just endless, endless, endless journals. And the way that I would do it is if something really struck me, it's like, I want to write about a trip to India because it was really interesting and it was not what I expected. And it was one of the places that I'd been avoiding for a long time because I was a little scared of it after what people had told me. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, okay, but I want to write about it now. And so I would go back to my journals and I would go back to my photographs. And what was one incident? Just start with one incident that was really, really interesting. And in this case, I wrote about going to see the tigers in one of the national parks
Oh, wow.
because for me, it kind of epitomized what my whole experience in India was like, which was, as somebody had said to me before I went, you are going to see some of the most beautiful sights you have ever seen in your life. And right next to it are going to be some of the most horrible things you've ever seen in your life. And they'll be right next to each other, which was
Hmm.
absolutely true.
Wow.
And it surprised me. It really surprised. It was very good advice. But I actually wrote several stories, but this particular one, I took the journals, took the photos, and I just focused on one incident. This whole piece about going to see tigers in the wild. And it was, I'm not going to tell the whole story. It's in the
No, no, no.
book,
Yeah. Save it. Yeah.
but but it got me to think about how do I write about it in a way that's going to convey what I was feeling through this whole experience, including what I thought before I went. And so I wrote a draft of it and I started taking writing classes and actually took a lot of writing workshops. And then I started my own writing group. And I've been
Oh,
in a writing
nice.
group for a very long time, like 15 years. And I was just writing stories basically for me. Or
Right.
my family. I was not intending to write a book, but I kept writing more travel stories. And everybody who knew me who was reading them was going, these are fabulous. You have got to get a book published. And they were really on my case to do it. And it's too much work. I don't want to do that. Um, in, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit. In 2001, I took a year off. It was my 50th birthday, and I decided that I wanted to just take a break, that I just needed a break and travel around the US and just visit all the places that are really hard to get to
Yeah.
and see people who I hadn't seen in years and years who live in remote places. I have two friends who live in different parts of Montana and just go to different places in the country that I'd never been to. And after that, I wrote a book. Well, every single day, I had a website. Before there were blogs, I had a website. It's called Find Karen. And it was I started out with my family and a few friends following me. And by the end of it, I had 500 or 600 people a day going onto the site because people were telling other
Wow.
people about it.
Yeah.
Because I was putting up photos and I was writing about it. So I had a great record of what I had been doing. And I turned those into a book. At that point, and it was about 2003, I had a book together and I wrote book proposals and, query letters and all the rest of it and got an agent because at that point you had to have an agent. There
Yeah.
was no other way. You couldn't self publish. And got an agent at a really good literary agency who loved the book, loved the idea. And then she left to become head of on demand publishing for Barnes and Noble and gave me over to another agent who hated travel writing, couldn't
Oh
stand it.
no. Oh,
And so I was going to have to do the whole process again. And it had taken me a year to get the agent and sign the contract. And I
yes.
just gave it up because I was working and I had no time. So I just put it aside and said, I'm just going to keep writing because I like writing. And then my writing group, as I said, really got on my case, really, really got on my case. And I learned about hybrid publishing,
Hmm.
which is very different from self publishing and it's very different from going through a traditional publisher. The only way that you can get to a traditional publisher is through an agent. Agents are very picky and publishers are very picky. And your chances are 1 out of 10,000, maybe. I
Yeah.
mean, they're minuscule.
Right.
Self publishing, everyone can do. Hybrid publishing, if you go to a good hybrid press, is selective, but not as selective as a traditional publisher. You have to front some money because you're sharing the risk for the publishing with them. So if your
Okay.
book's a flop, you're going to lose money. And I'm not sure anybody ever makes any money on a book.
You're
I have
right.
a friend who published with Random House, and she couldn't believe they did nothing for her. And
Oh
she had to pay
wow.
for a PR person and spent a fortune on a PR person. And, she ended up losing money, despite the fact that she was published by Random House. So you kind of go, okay, I'm not doing it for money. Let's get that out of the way because you just don't do it for that. You do it for lots of other reasons. And my reason for doing it is I am a real advocate for getting people to get out there and travel. It's been my passion in life, no question about it. And I want other people to travel. So I thought, okay, how can I do that? Well, I can do it by speaking and I can do it by writing a book. And I can do it by, I don't do a blog, but I do Facebook every day, which is the equivalent. And it has led to all kinds of things. I'm now a writer for 2 different publications. I've gotten loads of travel experiences, travel podcasts where I've been like this, where I've spoken with groups of people,
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of people all around the globe. I might add. I did a podcast with someone in Africa. I've done several with people in London. I did one with someone in Iceland. I mean, all over the place. And in every case, I'm saying to people, you got to get out there. It's such an interesting world. Go explore, go experience it. And it's my mission now. And, I'm retired. And so now I can spend a lot of time getting the world to share my passion. And the book was one way of doing it. And it was entree to a whole other world and to getting speaking and writing gigs. And so that was my purpose in doing it. And I think for anybody who's thinking about it, you have to think about why are you doing it? Some people do it because they want their family to have it,
Yes.
which is a perfectly legitimate reason. And in that case, I'd say go self-publish. If anybody has it and they really want people to read it, you don't want to self-publish because if you do it with Amazon, the only place your book will get sold is on Amazon.
Oh,
No one else will sell it. No
really?
one. That's correct. You cannot go to Barnes and Noble with a book that was published on Amazon.
Interesting.
Yeah. You can't go to independent booksellers. They hate Amazon. They will not sell any book that was published on Amazon. So it becomes a very narrow band of who's going to see the book. If you go to a hybrid publisher, and you want to go to a good one, and you can do some research to figure out which ones are good. And they're selective. The one that I am with is called She Writes Press, and they publish, I think, about 80 to 100 books a year, something like that. So they're fairly large
Yeah.
for a hybrid publisher, and they are selective. They read like 50 pages of the book, and then they decide if they want you at all. And if they want you at all, my first book, they said you have to go to our editor. This time they said you don't, and I got my own editor. Um, and but they do a lot for you, much more than a traditional publisher does.
Mm-hmm.
They help with the cover. They had their own proofreader. They get it through mainstream distribution channels so that it goes everywhere. They publish their list and they promote their list to libraries and all kinds of places so that your book is more widely distributed. And my book has done reasonably well, the first book. And I think when the second book comes out, the first book will do even better.
Right.
And I think the
Right.
second book will do, and I think the second book will do very, very, because now I have a following and people are interested. But it's a long process, um, but it's fun. I mean, I love writing it because to me, it's like reliving a trip,
Yeah.
and
Right.
I get to re-experience everything I experienced and remember all the emotions and remember how much fun it was. Because to me, there's nothing I enjoy better. And so to me, it's like, wow, yeah, I remember that. Wasn't that fabulous? And
Right.
I want to convey and really get people to get out and travel. So, to me, that's kind of the bottom line for all.
Yeah. Now, with the self-publishing, because some people may be thinking, they'll self-publish their book. Is it possible then later on to say parlay that to get like the hybrid situation so that their book then could get
Yeah,
distributed? Okay.
yes, yeah. Um, I think so. I don't know that for a fact,
Okay. Yeah.
um, but my guess is you probably can. Um, Most publishers, if there is one, there's a fourth round, by the way, that I didn't say, and those are small independent presses,
Hmm.
and small independent presses will often publish a book without you having to take in money to it. But they're very selective as well because they don't, there's university presses
Yes.
and there's small imprints, that they only focus on one thing and that's the only thing they publish. But you can do the research and find a small independent press, but be prepared for them not doing very much for you.
Right.
I have a friend who went through an independent press, didn't have to pay anything. She thought that it was, and my books have taken from the time they were accepted about 18 months until they were published.
Okay.
So it's, that's about the timeline. And hers ended up taking 3 years.
3 years. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because it was a small press and it was somebody left. So until they replaced them and on and on and on. And it got published and it's a beautiful book. I mean, they did a really nice job on it. But I don't know how many copies she sold, but my guess is almost nothing
Yeah.
because they did nothing for her and she didn't know how to. You have to learn how to market your book
Oh, of
because you have to
course.
do most of it.
Right.
Nobody's going to do it for you. And if you go to a PR firm, it's expensive. Um, I now am working with someone, and I'll tell you, it costs in the thousands.
Oh,
Um,
really?
oh yeah, and I'm doing it, the least that they can do. If you really go with some of the literary PR agencies, it can cost $10,000, $15,000, which I was never willing to do.
Yeah. Wow. The
So
hybrid
so it be,
publishing, is there, rough estimate on how much of your own money needs to be put into that? Does it vary on how many
It
pages are?
varies.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It varies on lots and lots of things. I was talking with someone. One of the other things I do is because of my business background, I do mentoring.
Yes.
And I do a lot of mentoring for people, for entrepreneurs. And I was talking with somebody the other day who really is anxious to get a book out and was trying to figure out how to do it. And I eventually said to him, you know, you might want to think about just articles because you have a real message you want to get out. And it's a very important message. And I think that that's a better way of reaching a large audience. And so if that's what you're interested in, I think about writing articles and submitting to places that publish travel. And there are lots of places that do that.
Yes, I
And
think there
so,
are still a lot of publications that are eager for content, essentially.
yes, yes. And that's another way of going about it is to just say, look, putting a book together is a huge undertaking. And maybe it's a better idea to just try and write some stories, write some articles, and try and getting those published. And sometimes, if you have enough stories published, that will get you to a publisher.
Right. That's an
So it can work that
excellent,
way as
yeah,
well.
that's an excellent starting point too. It's breaking it down into that small steps, starting small, getting some of those articles published. It would get your name to start being, some people will start to
Right.
recognize it and follow and want more, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when people, and it's funny because I did a lot of promotion for my first book. And when people that I had interviewed with and heard that I was doing another book, they were coming to me without my saying anything and saying, we want you on, we want you to write an article, we want this, we want that,
Yeah.
which has been phenomenal because it does start to snowball a bit that, once your name is out there, people understand that you really have something to say, you have a message, that you present well, that you can talk, and people care about that.
Right.
If you're
Right.
very shy, stick to the writing
Yeah.
because you do have to get out there and talk.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're like me and you think it's fun, that's a whole different story.
What are some tips for people that are traveling in order to have material to maybe use later? I know you mentioned how you started a journal at a young age, but some people, they didn't get into that habit, but going forward should probably, if they foresee wanting to actually have something worthy to turn into a book.
Right. I would say, first of all, you have to write every single day. And it doesn't have to be in full sentences and it doesn't have to be perfect English. What you have to write is what you experienced. That you saw the Eiffel Tower is very nice, but what was the experience like of seeing the Eiffel Tower? Was it the crowds were so thick that you sort of felt like you were in the middle of a mob? Was it that you were in total awe of it, that it was not what you expected? Was it so beautiful that you wanted to see it at different times of day? What was that experience like? Because only you have had that experience. Everybody has seen it. You don't need to describe the
Right.
Eiffel Tower, but not everybody has had what you experienced. And those are the things that you want to write down. If you had a fabulous meal, why was it fabulous? How is it different? What was unique about it? Saying that you had a fabulous dinner in Paris means nothing.
Right.
But if you say I ate escargot for the first time, and oh my God, I didn't expect how garlicky it was, and it was wonderful, except my breath was horrible after that. You know, that's interesting.
Yes.
It's not that you ate a great meal, or even that you ate escargot. It was what was your reaction to it? Those are the things you want to write down because those are the things you may not remember. Sometimes you think you always thought that way. And sometimes before I'm going somewhere that I've never been to before, I'll even write what I expect.
Ooh.
And then when I get there, it's like, huh, is it what I expected?
That's an excellent tip, actually. I like that angle of before you go on that trip, the day or two before, maybe looking at where you're going to go. What are your thoughts pre-trip? Because that gives a good, that arc of this is what I thought of India before I went, and this is, wow, I was, like you mentioned, the tigers. I was completely,
Yeah. And the experience, it's this, to me, travel is about change. It's not about ticking off something on a list. And so if you can get what that change was, what was the experience like compared to what you thought it was? Or what happened that really surprised you, or that delighted you, or that made you think differently about something? We were talking a little bit before about, I went to Russia, and my family's originally from Russia, and I had a certain image of it, and then when I got there, it was not what I expected. In so many ways, the architecture was not what I expected. The people were not what I expected. Um, and my brother had been there shortly before, maybe a year or two before I went. And one of the things that he said to me that I had in my mind before I went was, it was so strange traveling in a place where everyone looked like they could be related to me.
oh,
And as I was looking around, I had that in my mind. And one of the things that I realized is there's no diversity at all. Everybody looks Russian.
wow.
And yeah, and if I live in New York City, so I'm used to seeing
Oh,
everybody from all over the globe all the time. And even in most major cities now,
yeah,
they're very diverse. And that's
right,
true globally.
right.
And here I am in Moscow, and everybody looks Russian. Everybody. And so his thought kind of planted that in my brain. And so I did a lot of writing about that. So it's kind of like, what are your ingoing expectations? And then what happens when you're there? And what does that lead to? And it's the train of thought that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell a book in the new book. I tell a story of going to Vienna for the first time, and my grandmother was possibly the worst cook on the globe. She was horrible, and she used to make something that she called strudel, which consisted of rubbery dough that she would spread out and then put a layer of jam on it and roll it up. And the jam would ooze out and the whole thing would burn. And then you let it sit for too long, you could break a tooth on it. It was
Oh,
awful.
God.
It was just, she really was a horrible, horrible cook. Lovely woman, but a horrible cook.
Right.
Anyhow, so we're in Vienna, and I'm with a friend, and we go into a cafe, and it's beautiful and it's elegant, and everything looks fabulous. And the waiter comes over, and I talk about it in much more detail in the story, but and he says, well, what would you like? And I was like, I don't know how to do so. You should try the strudel. That's our specialty. And I'm thinking to myself, oh God, I don't want strudel. But all right, I'll try strudel. And out he comes with this plate, and it is revelatory. It is flaky. It's light. It is one of the most divine desserts I have ever eaten. And I was like, oh my God, I understand why people want to eat strudel. And so that's the story, is knowing what I grew up with and what I
Right.
imagined, and then having this truly revelatory experience eating it. And that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, that does what makes it fun. I think people have in some way, like everybody thinks I can write a book, or I've been to all these amazing places, I've met all these people. And so I think there's a little bit of a misconception that we all have these stories, but I think we don't all know how to share them and write a good
Right.
story. I think there is a difference. I personally think, you can be a painter, and yes, art can be abstract and wonderful, but I think with writing, we all, for whatever reason, we all have this idea that we can all write. And honestly, I think we all need to, that's a skill you kind of need to hone to end up
Yes.
with something that people will really want to read instead of like, there's other, because there's books and books and books about travel experiences. So to set ours apart, we need to learn a little bit. So what are some tips for becoming a better writer? Are there groups or workshops?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is see if there's a local class in your area. If there's a writer's center or there's a community college, there's always writing classes. I mean, take a writing class. You'll learn a lot. I've been writing my whole life, and the first time I took a writing class, it was like, God, I know nothing. I mean,
Okay.
genuinely. And my writing has only gotten better over time. The more you write, the better it gets. And be open to criticism, because everyone told me for years, that's a very nice story. You've described the place absolutely beautifully, but we don't know anything about you. You have to put yourself in the story, because writing a story about a place without having characters in it, and you're one of the main characters, is just not terribly interesting.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a skill, learning how to say it and being brave enough to talk about how dumb you were, or, or how little you understood about it, or the stupid mistakes you made. That's what people relate to. That's why people find it fun, is
Yeah.
because they understand, oh yeah, yeah, she may have gone all around the world, but God, she was as dumb as I was, or oh my God,
Right.
she, look what she did, how could she have done something so stupid? And you have to be willing to put yourself out there. And that's not easy to do. It took me years until I really got to the point where I was willing to put it out there and just, say, yeah, I made some really dumb mistakes. Or, I walked into this situation and I did not know what I was getting myself into. Um, and sometimes it's great and sometimes not so much. And sometimes, um, I went on a business trip to Brazil, and went to Sao Paulo. And I was terrified the entire time I was there. And it was my fault. I had had all these people saying it's one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And my client put me up in the most expensive hotel in the city, which made me a target the minute I walked out the door.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I would never have been in that hotel had I been traveling on my own. And I never left the hotel except to go to meetings. When they sent a car for me, I got into the car, went to their offices, went through this intense security, and I never saw the city. I never saw it. And I realized afterwards, the thing that it did more than anything else is, I know people come to New York and they're scared of New York.
Yeah.
And I understand why now. And I never appreciated it before, because if you've been hearing stories forever, you believe them. And I could have gone out, and I didn't. And I regret it to this day that I didn't go out, because here I am in this interesting city and I never left the hotel.
Wow.
And for me to say that, and I'm a really experienced traveler, it took me until I wrote that chapter and people read it and went, I can't believe you never left the hotel. So I didn't. I
Right.
didn't. And I mean, there were reasons for it for sure, but still, it was like, so you have to be willing to tell the stories about when you did stupid things, but what you also learned from it. Because I did change. And how I changed was realizing that I had to confront that fear, but also being very, very sensitive to other people's fear of going somewhere that they think is going to be a scary place. I get it. And I didn't. And so that became the story. That became the story because there's nothing interesting that I can write about Sao Paulo. Nothing, because I didn't see
Right,
anything.
right,
But I wrote about it because of how I changed, and people loved the story.
right. And it's worth including to point it out for that reason.
Exactly, exactly. So, don't focus on everything that was beautiful and wonderful, and sometimes focus on the things that you learn through an experience that you wish you hadn't had,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the unexpected fabulous things. The opposite to that one is I was in Indonesia in Yogyakarta, and I was walking along a street and saw a puppet shop, and I'm really into puppets. And as I'm standing there looking in the window, the proprietor came out and invited me to come in. Now, he spoke no English. Could not speak. We couldn't communicate, but he was fabulous. There were hundreds of puppets, and he picked up a puppet and he was showing me how he used it. And then he said, pick a puppet, pick some puppets. So I picked a couple of puppets, and he gave me a whole scene from a play.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
understood exactly what was going on because it was just so dramatic.
Right.
And then he took me to the back room and he showed me how he made the puppets.
Oh wow.
And it turns out he handed me a brochure right as I was, and I bought a couple of puppets, but right as I was leaving, he handed me a brochure, and it turns out that he's the puppeteer for the Royal Palace.
Oh wow.
Now, yeah, and I had a private show, and I was with him for hours,
Yeah.
and it was one of those totally unexpected things. I mean, I was looking through a window. Trust me, I never thought this would happen, but
Right.
that's a fabulous story because it talks about not just having an interesting experience, but how you communicate with someone when you can't talk with them.
Right. Exactly. Which happens. Some
And
of
we entertained each other for hours. He was thrilled because he could see that I was really into this.
yeah.
And, and it doesn't have to be puppets. Whatever it is that you're doing that you really get involved with, that you think is just fascinating, that's what you write about. And it doesn't matter. It could be sports. It could be, whatever. It doesn't make any difference. It's the thing that you care about. That's what you want to write about. That's what you want to focus on.
I think that's fabulous. I also have a question. I'm seeing a lot of collaborative efforts in especially kind of in the travel shelf, mainly because that's the shelf I'm always looking at. And you see these compilations of travel writers or all women, or maybe it's on a travel theme. Do you feel like that's a plus for someone that's maybe new to writing, or should they venture out on their own? Any tips or
Most of the
pros and cons?
compilations, yeah, most of the compilations come from things that have been published.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't submit something to them. I tried. They don't. I've since submitted things from the book, or articles that I published, and they're willing to consider them.
Okay.
So, but they will not take just the story right. So it sounds like a great idea, but don't. It's unlikely unless it's a local publication, in which case
Right.
you might.
Or maybe if you found your own authors to pair with and maybe split the costs, or,
You could do that for sure. Yeah,
that
yeah,
might be a
that you
way
could do.
to approach it, is work together kind of in a collaborative effort of some
Yeah,
kind.
actually, that sounds like a fabulous idea. Have like 4 or 5 people write their own story of the same place. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes, yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking too, like,
Yeah, that would be
because
great.
we all know everybody's going to have, you gave the example of Paris. We're all going to have a different experience depending on maybe where we are. We're 20 something, maybe we came alone, maybe we came with a partner, maybe we had something precede us being there. I often think about that, which is why sometimes it's tempting to go back to a place. You went there in college and you had this amazing experience, but as we get older, our perceptions, our perspective changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And because I started traveling very young,
Yeah.
I go back to places, and there are places that I won't go back to now because I have such a pristine image in my mind that I do not want to go back because I've read enough to know that I'm going to be very disappointed. And I'd rather, I mean, I went to Venice when I was 19,
Oh, wow.
and Venice when I was 19 was, I mean, it was already touristy, but it was not crazy. And I went in the off season, and it was pristine and beautiful and everything. I went out to the island of Murano, and I've just this fabulous memories of it. And everything I hear now, it's like I am never going back. I don't want to erase that incredible pristine image.
Yeah.
And then there are other places that I love going back to because I want to see how they've changed. I go
Right.
to London probably every other year. And when I was working, I was sometimes going 3 and 4 times a year. I did a lot of business in London, and I lived in London for 3 years. So it's a place that I can get there. I don't need a map. I don't need anything. I know exactly where I'm going, and I still have friends there. And so I get to see how it's changed over time.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to see a place that you know very well. And I know Seattle extremely well because again, it's somewhere that I used to do a lot of business in. And so I've seen Seattle go from a sleepy little place where they didn't want anybody to come in and they were actively discouraging people from moving there to it being, the tech center of the world. And it has changed hugely. I sometimes I walk down a street and it's like, wait, I thought I knew where I was, but this doesn't look at all like what I thought.
Right.
And it has not necessarily changed for the better. I still go there because I still occasionally do business there and I have friends there. But sometimes I'll write about that. I wrote a whole thing about going to Berlin because I went to Berlin numerous times right after the wall came down,
Oh, wow.
and then I went back um, about 10 years ago, and I've been back since. And it was a whole different experience, completely different experience. So that's another perspective. If you've gone places multiple times, talking about what the changes are and how you react to the changes.
Mm-hmm.
That's another interesting angle to take.
That is
You
a
know,
very
if
interesting
you have
angle to take.
if if you've got, and again, it doesn't have to be going somewhere exotic. It can be going to Chicago. Because Chicago's changed a whole lot. So has New York. So has San Francisco. I mean, you know, and what's your reaction to seeing somewhere that you haven't seen in a while? And you know and write it down, not just where you went, but boy, I remembered this from when I was 25 and was here, and what I remembered about it. And again, I would write that down before you go.
Yes.
Here's what I
Yeah.
remember. Here's
Right.
what I remember before from when I went there the last time,
Yeah.
and then go and compare.
Right. Excellent tips. If people are looking for a writing mentor or a writing workshop, are there ways to kind of vet whether it might be a good match for them as they're searching? Because I'm sure just like learning to play music oftentimes or write paint a painting, there might be multiple
Right.
ways to
Yeah.
achieve the end goal and
I
any
hate to
creative.
say it, trial and error. I
Okay.
went through, I took a whole bunch of classes. I had 2 or 3 really amazing instructors, really amazing. And I had a lot of people who were okay. The one place, and I don't know if they're doing it in person anymore, but they have in Iowa City, the university,
Oh,
which is very well known for writing. They used to have, and they stopped it during COVID, so I don't know if it started again. The Summer Writing Festival,
that's right.
and I went out there, I don't know, 5 or 6 times for a week,
Oh,
and I would take
wow.
different instructors, and it's not a big investment of money, and it's not a big deal. And that's where I met some of the absolute best instructors I've ever worked with. So that's worth considering. And there's lots of online things as well.
That
Um,
in-person immersion, though, I think for a lot of people really can make
yeah.
quite a difference to move you from point A to point B
Yes.
because You know, you again,
Yeah.
you're surrounded in that environment. That's you're waking.
And and you can meet a lot of people. And if there are people that you really like, you can start a writers group because you can do it on Zoom.
Yes.
You don't have to be in the same place. My writers group is on Zoom because we've got people all over the country.
Oh,
Doesn't
nice.
make any difference. Yeah.
So tell us about your
So,
writers group now that you mentioned it. Is it something that you take, you know, people apply for, or anyone can join, or you have certain open periods? How is that working?
well, we started out, we were all in class together, and the teacher decided he didn't want to teach anymore.
Oh, okay.
And so, literally, and he was a great guy, but he decided he, was not going to teach our class. So a whole bunch of us got together and said, well, let's start writing together.
Oh, nice.
And that started about 5 years ago. But I was, no, yeah, more than that now. It's 6 years. But I'd been in a different writing group and then I had moved and, I was looking around for another writing group. And so we started it, and some people dropped out, and then we acquired some other people, and we realized we had to come up with a set of rules because it was, and everybody's got what their rules should be. Ours is you have to submit. We meet every other Tuesday faithfully, and you have to submit by midday on Sunday. And if it's 1 minute after 12, don't bother because no one's going to read it. And one person is the moderator, and we shift around who's the moderator, and we critique each other's work, and we critique up to 5 pieces each time.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And we spend about 20 minutes on each one. We're on for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And we give very, very good critiques. And then you have to send your written critiques back to the author. And we're very kind to each other in that we don't, say, oh my God, that's horrendous. But we give good critiques. We got, things like, I don't understand what you mean by this. And is that really the right word? Because I wasn't quite sure. Or the timeline, I can't figure out what the timeline is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not clear. Or you need a better transition here.
Right.
Or what happened? You kind of left me hanging about this.
Right.
And we write in different genres. I'm the only one who writes travel. We have we have two fiction writers. We have somebody who's writing about yoga. We have somebody who's writing, yeah. So, we have a
Yeah,
whole
it
bunch of
is. It's
stuff.
like all over the map, but
Yeah. But it's because it's about the writing, not about the content.
yes.
And if somebody, you'll get kicked out immediately if you say, well, I just don't like the content, or I just don't like your characters. It's like, no,
Mm-mm.
that's not the point of this.
Right.
If you understand the character enough to not like them, then that's okay. They're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You can say, I don't like the character, but I understand them. But maybe you need to soften them a little bit because I took this immediate dislike. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But understand that that's what I'm taking away from.
Yeah, that's a great thing is you need constructive criticism, and as a creative, you need to be open to improve, especially in writing, I think, or any a lot of arts. I mean, if you really want to get your story out there to others that don't know you and be interested in reading it, you're gonna need
Absolutely.
to get some constructive, if they don't
Yeah.
understand what you're saying or where the story's going, or after the first 5 pages you lost me and I'm putting it down, well,
Right. And it takes a while to kind of build that skill up.
yeah.
It's a hard skill to learn, which is why it's worth taking a class, because if you've got a good instructor, you will get good criticism and you'll get to see what a good critique is like. And it's worth it for that, because going into a group and not understanding what a helpful critique is, you're not going to be an asset to the group, and you're not going to get as much from the group.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I say, I took a lot of classes before I even got into a writing group, and I'm glad I did. So I would strongly suggest doing, but they're fun. They really are fun. And if you don't find them fun, you shouldn't be doing it. If it's torturous, you know what?
Yeah,
Figure out a different way to do it, you
right,
know?
right. Oh, I think that's a great point. Yeah, if you're not enjoying the process, then we're back to why. Why do you want to do this?
Yeah.
It should be
Yeah.
joyful.
Yeah.
Because I mean, again, if you're not getting paid to write and you're doing this out of just you want to share your stories, then you should.
Yeah. I mean, if you think you really hate writing. Oh, and that's the other, I have a tip, and I give this to everybody who I mentor because they're
Yeah,
doing business writing. If you don't know where to begin, on every phone, you can record yourself. Take a phone and just talk about it and talk about it for as long as you possibly can. If you can't think of anything else to say to yourself, Karen told me I have to keep talking. Karen told me I have to keep talking, and something else will pop in your head and just keep talking. Then put it aside. Then go back and do it again a second time and do it for 10, 15 minutes. Then go back and listen to it and pull out the things that are most interesting and use that as a starting point for the writing.
that's excellent. What a great exercise, Karen.
Yeah. Yeah, it works really well.
Because I was just
Because a
thinking
lot of people
too.
look at a blank piece of paper and it's like, I don't know where to begin. I don't know where to
Yes, I
begin.
was just gonna say, give us some tips because that's just it. Oftentimes we have ideas for stories. Maybe we've even floated a title through our head, like, where we go. Oftentimes I've gone to the bookstore and I see all the like
Oh,
beautiful travel stuff, and you're like, well, I know I can write something like that. I love that title.
yeah.
But then you get to your computer, your journal, and you stop. You just shut down.
Yeah. I realize the light is changing.
Yeah, yeah. So you got tips
Uh,
on doing that, or again, for
yeah.
people
Well,
that haven't journaled either. I mean, they're just the end of their travel day came and now they're like, I don't know what to write. And
yeah. As I say, if writing is tough for you, just record it and then go back to it later. And you can do it on every single phone in the world. And if you don't already have it on your phone, there's tons of free apps to be able to record. And that's what I would do is just record it and see where it goes. So
excellent.
yeah, it's it's a fun thing to do. It really is. And again, if you don't love it, why are you doing it? Because you're not getting paid for it and you're not doing it because anybody else is, standing over you saying you must do it. So if you're not enjoying it, it's time to think about what else you might want to do.
Right.
And you might just record stories. And if it's for your family, give them the recording.
Well, that's a great idea. Yeah, yeah, that's smart. Well, this has been
Yeah,
super, super enjoyable, Karen. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? You've got the two books, Travel Mania and Wanderlust, coming out in October.
I
You're
do.
writing for various publications. We can follow your travels. So
Yep. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. You name it, I'm there. And every time I travel, there is a travel narrative going up on all of those places. So, by all means, friend me and or connect with me, and if you have questions, just send me a message. I'm always happy to encourage people.
I love that. Thank you so much, Karen. And I look forward to seeing you in Wisconsin at
Oh yeah, can't
TBEX.
wait.
For anyone that's going to be there too, I hope to have this episode out and look forward to meeting you in person. So
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to go have a cup of coffee and
I
figure out
know,
what we're.
yeah, exactly.
And it's nice to know that I'll have someone there that I know because this is my first time going. So
Yeah, it's my first time too. So, and I've got all these ideas for books and writing and have to like kind of buckle down. And so I'm curious, I'm going to research some resources and put them in the show notes, I think, too, of like maybe workshops, like you mentioned, the Iowa writing workshop. I think there's other workshops out there
yeah,
that
there's lots of them.
And some of them I've noticed aren't very expensive. You know,
No,
you can go for a weekend in the Catskills
absolutely.
or wherever, and just
And
give it
and
a
try
try.
and I was going to say community colleges all over the country have writing classes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that are open to the public. And I would definitely look. That was the first place I ever went for writing class was at my local community college, and it was a really good class. The teacher was fabulous.
Oh, wow. That's an
Yeah,
excellent tip. You're right. I didn't even think about the community colleges. And I think
yeah,
some cities used to kind of sponsor like community, like, or even like adult summer, how we used to have summer things for kids, adult summer classes. So again, you could take something
yeah,
short term or weekends or maybe a Saturday, and just try it and see
yeah,
see where it
yeah,
goes.
yeah. There's something called the International Women's Writing Guild, IWWG, and I used to belong to it. And they have a conference every year with lots of workshops. And I know they do workshops all around the country, so you might want to consider that you know, in the notes because I know they're still around and they do all this stuff. There's so much out there.
Yeah, that is the
There's,
benefit now is people have a lot of resources that they can actually quickly put their fingers on.
yeah,
That's one thing I'm jealous. I grew up kind of pre-internet as well, and it's like you had to know somebody, go to the library, and maybe someone had, found something for you. But now it's like the palette is open. So,
yeah. The funniest story I have, well, it's funniest, but I went to um, I was not planning to go to Venezuela, but I ended up going to Venezuela. This was a long time ago when you could, I wouldn't go there now, but when you could go to Venezuela. And it was at the very last minute. I was supposed to go somewhere else, and the country had a coup. So you couldn't go there.
right.
And so I was trying to find somewhere that was cheap and close and that I could go to. And I was desperately trying to find information. My travel agent, I had a travel agent then, said, "Well, Venezuela's close and I can get you an airfare there for like nothing." Well, okay, I'll go there. Never been there. I knew nothing. If I tell you I knew nothing about Venezuela, I am not being facetious. Nothing. And I managed, there used to be a travel bookstore in New York, and I picked up this book, the only book they had
I
about
was gonna
Venezuela.
say it might have been the only one.
There was only one book. I had no choice. This was it. And it was written by someone who loved Venezuela. If you read this book, you wondered why everybody in the entire world wasn't rushing to Venezuela.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of it was misinformation.
Okay.
And I speak rudimentary Spanish. I describe it as speaking like a not too bright 5 year old. But it was enough to get me around. And I had the best time. And I take quotes from the book because I still had the book when I was writing, and some of it's hilarious. So this is another way to do it, but this is pre-internet, pre-everything, and I'm writing what the author wrote and what my experience was with it,
Oh, I
and
love
some
that.
of it's hilarious, and
Yeah, I
some of it is
love that.
absolutely hilarious.
That is great.
Yeah, and it was just, and that was it. That was the only information I had.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Nice.
had a reservation for the first night at a hotel in Caracas, and after that, I was on my own. So,
Oh, wow. Wow,
yeah,
what a great place to, and I bet that's a chapter in Travel Mania, perhaps.
yeah, it is. Yeah,
So you got to go pick up Travel Mania to hear the rest. So check out KarenGershowitz.com. She's also on Facebook, LinkedIn. Follow her. She's always posting pictures and tidbits of where she's going. That's fabulous stories. And thank you again, Karen. This has been amazing.
my pleasure. It was great fun.